Quite exciting today to speak to Louise. Louise and I actually went to university together. We're not going to say how many years ago. At the time, Louise was actually studying a degree
A B consumer science.
to go into retail.
Yeah.
She did end up working in
hmm
retail, but decided that she really doesn't like it. So then decided to get her postgraduate qualification in teaching at the same university, and then became a TEFL teacher. And she's worked in China and currently is working in Vietnam. So, Louise, it's so great to catch up with you. I think it's always great to get a good perspective of what it's been like for someone to be a TEFL teacher. You've, like I said, been a TEFL teacher now for a number of years. Let's talk about how you got into being a TEFL teacher and yeah, start with your time in China.
Okay. Awesome. So I did my PGC as you mentioned, and then I was looking for work in South Africa, and I wasn't really getting what I was looking for. And it wasn't until I stumbled onto a post on Facebook and somebody said about, you can make X amount of cash working in China, and this is the name of the company. And so I reached out to this girl on my Facebook, and within I think a month, I was on my way to China. So I moved to Chengdu in the Sichuan province. And mainly my job was I was an English teacher, but I was working at a training center. So what was nice about the job that I had is that it put me in a situation where I got to meet a lot of people. EF was actually quite big. So they had, at the time that I started, they had 8 different centers all across Chengdu, and I was able to meet a lot of people. Um, so back to the work. The work was actually very easy. It was quite enjoyable. The class sizes were small. I think you're maxed out at 10, and the older classes were about 15, and everything was already kind of done for you. So you had your your resources were there, and also the lesson plans were there. You still had to lesson plan, but you took the bigger lesson that they gave you, and then you would make a smaller lesson out of that, a little bit easier to for yourself to teach from. But living in China, I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoy living in Vietnam. But that's just because I was at a strange, I was young, man. It was a weird time in my life. I was 25, and it was also the first time that I moved out of the house, and I moved abroad, and I was living by myself. Um, but I met a lot of cool people. I'll say this about China: one day it works, the other day it doesn't work. One day you'll be able to order food from the same place you've been ordering the whole week, and the next day you won't be able to. They won't be able to help you. They'll just be like "Tim Budong, Tim Budong," which means I don't know. um, so yeah, I had fun. Like I said, I mentioned as well, I met a lot of cool people. I did a little bit of traveling, but not as much as I would have liked to travel. I actually left China to go back and travel again in China. So I was with EF for about 17 months, and then after that, I was like, I know I want to keep on being a TEFL teacher or keep on teaching, but I wasn't sure where to go. So that's when I started at looking at different places, and Vietnam kind of popped up, and I looked at Hanoi specifically, and I found a couple of places, and then I just started applying, and that was 2018 that I moved to Vietnam, and I'm still currently in Vietnam, and I'm having a great time. I absolutely love it. I would say the cost of living between China and Vietnam are kind of same, but it depends. I think in China it depends on where you live. I was living in a city that was building up to become a bigger city, and right now in Vietnam, I'm living in one in the capital city. But I would say that the food is quite low, the rent is quite low, and the amount of money that you can save is definitely worth it. So the cost of living for me is definitely it's what's been keeping me here for so long as well. Then sense of community as well. I was like thinking now what was different in China. We, like I said, I was 25, so I was doing we partied. That was how we communicated to one another at that stage. So that's how I found a lot of friends, and my community was with the people that I was working with. But in Vietnam, it was now a little bit different because I wasn't with a learning center. I was with a school. So what I did in Vietnam is I randomly met this woman I was getting a tattoo, and this lady who was tattooing me said, I play AFL. Do you know what AFL is, and do you want to play? And I was like, I've never heard of this before in my life. I'd love to play. And AFL is Australian football. And I thought I joined the club in Vietnam, and I wish I knew about it when I was in China. There's a lot of AFL clubs in China as well. So I would definitely suggest, if you're living abroad, if you can get into any form of sport. Sports is a great way to meet people, especially if you're South African. There's another sport called Gaelic. That's what the Irish play. It's like a mixture of netball slash basketball slash soccer. It's amazing. You meet a lot of great people. Then there's AFL, and then whatever else is happening in the community sport wise. I would also suggest getting on events, going to as many events as possible. You need to go and do things and put yourself out there if you're going to move to another country. And it's the only way for you. That putting yourself out there is a good way to meet people and to make friends. And you'll realize that everybody who's there we're all kind of like-minded, and we're all looking for friends, and we're all looking for that sense of community. So yeah.
So interesting what you're saying about the sport that you're playing. Did you mention it's an Australian sport?
Yes, it's an Australian sport.
How did that get to Vietnam? Is there like a bit of an Australian community there, or?
Yes, there is quite a big Australian community in Vietnam, and I guess kind of like all over Asia. Like there's Thailand, there's Vietnam, there's areas in China, there's Malaysia, there's Bali. Most of Southeast Asia, wherever you go, there will be an AFL club. I think it's because Australia is so close to Southeast Asia, and also I think a lot of people, when they retire, especially Australians, when they retire, they move probably to Southeast Asia because they get more bang for their buck, right? Yeah.
Okay. And so tell us, Louise, just quickly about Vietnam. You said that I think at the time maybe that you went over some of the requirements changed for TEFL teachers. Do you want to just expand a bit on
Yeah.
that?
Yes, of course. So by the time I went to Vietnam, that was the same. You just had to have a degree and do your TEFL, and you would be able to get a job. But since then, their laws have changed a little bit. The most important law that they've changed is the one that enables you to get your TRC, which is your temporary resident card. And this law states that what your degree is in is what your job should be. So if you want to be a teacher, or then your degree needs to be in teaching. And it gets even more specific than that. Like, so I have my PGCE, and my PGCE is for FET phase. So I think that's middle school to high school, if I have it right. So that's like grade 4 to grade 10 about. And I want to be a kindergarten to grade 3 teacher, because that's where I found I flourished. Like, that was my teaching style, is more adequate for younger students. So my PGCE wasn't enough to be able to teach for grade 1, because it has to reflect that, it has to specifically say that. So I quickly did a course with a university to be able to enable myself to get the right qualifications. So if you are thinking of coming to Vietnam, I would suggest having a PGCE or a degree in education, and then obviously do your TEFL on top of that, and then coming over. I also think it's worth it, because you might be looking at between 3,000 to 4,000 USD a month salary if you have the right qualifications. Yes.
So great destinations for specifically qualified teachers, and like you say, to really
Yes.
worth it for them at the end of the day to make that kind of move.
Yes. For sure. Yeah. Yes. Hanoi is great. Saigon is even better. Some people will say I am a Hanoi girl through and through. Saigon, the weather is better. It's hot all year round. Vietnam has 4 seasons. Saigon only has 1. But I would definitely recommend coming to Vietnam. There's a little bit more freedom, so in China, public transport systems, they really work very well. But in Vietnam, you get to drive a motorbike. Go to work on a motorbike.
And Louise, what is like the actual teaching like in Vietnam at your current school?
At my current school, like everything else in teaching, you should make sure your behavior management is like up to scratch, like the best you can do, the best you can give for your behavior management. Because having if you have that, then any class you teach will be a ball. The kids are great. I work at an international school, so I have kids from all over the world: Japan, India, Russia, Vietnam, obviously, and then Chinese, Taiwanese. So I have a big group of little global citizens. The kids are great. They, like I said, behavior management is most important, and they work hard, and we learn hard, and we enjoy ourselves.
Tell me about some of your future plans because you are in the middle of your contract with your current school, but you are thinking of maybe teaching online in the future.
Yes. So basically, yeah, I've been in Vietnam for 5 years, and I, yeah, halfway through a 2-year contract. And I think what I'm going to like for now, I feel like I'm ready to take a little bit of a break. So I was thinking of creating an online, not platform for myself, but maybe linking up with like online platforms and going online and teaching. My main idea was, because I have so much experience with younger students, was to maybe do like teach them how to learn how to read, because that's very important. Most For most kids that are going to international schools, um, or any schools who are going to teach them English, is reading for grade one is the most important. It's very, very important. And yeah, and like I said, I have a lot of experience with teaching kids how to read. So I was thinking of maybe taking that with me online, and then hopefully go anywhere where my passport allows me to go. So I have a sister who lives in Holland, and I was hoping to move to Holland for a couple of months, maybe half a year, and go fully online for a little bit while I figure out what my next destination is.
Yeah, and it's great that TEFL gives you that kind of flexibility and options.
Yes, for sure. I didn't really even think about it, because I was said to sound more conventional, and you, Anina, actually mentioned it, and I was like, wait, I can do that. I can do it. That can be, yeah, it's in my wheelhouse. I can do it. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Well, Louise, it's been so great catching up, and we wish you all the best. And we hope that somehow with Global English, we can help you, whatever we can help with. We'd love to stay in touch and help you, and just excited to see what you do in the future. Thanks for sharing your TEFL journey with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for asking. I love sharing.